You know, for decades, Southwest Airlines was the maverick of the skies. They were the one airline you could always count on for something different, something friendly, something, well, cheaper. But lately, it feels like that maverick is flying a completely different route. And let me tell you, it has been a bumpy ride. So what on earth is going on with the airline that used to promise us love? Let's get into it.
So what's at the heart of all this change? It really boils down to two things that used to define the airline. The good old days of bags fly free and just grabbing whatever seat you wanted, yeah, that's been replaced with bag fees and assigned seats. It's a massive shift. So how did the airline that built its entire reputation on being different end up looking so much like everyone else? To really understand just how big of a deal this is, you gotta remember the brand Southwest spent more than 50 years building. This wasn't just some other airline. It was an identity. They were supposed to be the customer's champion in the sky.
In that famous bags fly free policy, it wasn't just some nice little marketing slogan, it was actually baked into their whole operation. See, by encouraging you to check your bags, they could get planes boarded and turned around way faster. It was a key piece of their DNA.
So the big question is, why? Why would a company ditch a policy that was so incredibly popular and so central to its whole identity? Well, as you can probably guess, it pretty much all comes down to the bottom line. Look, the thinking behind it was pretty simple. The airline wanted to make more money. Plain and simple. They looked around, saw their competitors making a fortune on bag fees, and decided they wanted a piece of that action. It was a strategic play to open up a massive new revenue stream.
And for passengers, this new revenue stream hits you right where it hurts, your wallet. That first checked bag is going to cost you $35. A second one, $45. Think about a family of 4. You could be adding over $300 to a round-trip ticket. That's a huge departure from the old Southwest value we all knew. Okay, but here's the twist. The plan to make more money, it kind of backfired, creating this huge wave of logistical problems that the airline just wasn't prepared for. Turns out, their solution created a whole new and very messy problem. It was a total domino effect. So you start charging for bags, right? What happens? People bring more carry-ons to save cash. Suddenly, you've got this massive surge of luggage on planes that were designed for fewer carry-ons. Then you throw assigned seating into the mix, and bam! Instead of grabbing the first seat with an open bin, now everyone's trying to push past each other in a clogged aisle. It's just chaos.
And this wasn't just a minor annoyance. I mean, industry watchers like Gary Leff were looking at this and saying, whoa, this is way more chaotic than what you see on other airlines, and those guys are used to the carry-on battle.
All this chaos led to this. Let's call it a tactic to try and keep flights on time. And that brings us to the really frustrating question that so many passengers are now asking themselves at the gate.
So here's what's been happening. To speed things up, gate agents started telling people they had to gate check their carry-ons because the bins are full. But then passengers would get on the plane and see all this empty space. It's a move to keep the planes on schedule, but it's really costing them customer trust.
You know, when you have this much chaos on the ground and this many angry customers, that noise doesn't just stay on social media. It travels all the way up the ladder, right to the boardroom, where, it turns out, some big changes were already in the works.
And then, boom! On February 10th, 2026, the news dropped that 2 directors, David Cush and Greg Soretsky, were stepping down from the board. And look, this wasn't just swapping out a couple of names on the letterhead. The company actually announced it was shrinking its entire board from 13 members down to 11. That's a pretty big deal. It signals a major structural shift in the airline's leadership. Yet, get this, the official word from the company? It paints a very different picture. In the announcement, CEO Bob Jordan called 2025 a year of remarkable transformation, a statement that, you have to admit, sounds a little strange when you compare it to the chaotic reality passengers were actually living through.
Okay, so let's bring this all back down to earth. After all the policy changes, the boarding chaos, the boardroom drama, what does this really mean for you, the person just trying to book a flight?
At the end of the day, here's the clash we're seeing. The goal was simple: make more money, be more efficient, act like the other airlines. But the reality, for now at least, has been a ton of boarding chaos and a level of customer frustration that feels, well, very un-Southwest.
So here's your new game plan if you're flying Southwest. First off, just expect to pay for every single bag you check. Second, be ready for a fight for that overhead bin space. Third, brace yourself for a boarding process that might feel a lot more stressful than you remember. And finally, don't be shocked if they make you gate check your carry-on, even if you see empty spots when you finally get on board.
And all of this really leaves us with one big final question.
doesn't it? For 50 years, Southwest's entire promise was that it was different. Now that it's changed its policies to be just like everybody else, is it risking its whole identity for good?